Good morning. Welcome to United First Parish Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, welcome to our Unitarian Universalist spiritual community. We're delighted to welcome anyone who may be visiting us. You can learn more about our community by going to our website, www.ufpc.org. I'm Christopher Taylor, our worship associate this morning. Christopher Taylor every day, but I'm a worship associate this morning. Our worship leaders this morning, on screen and behind the screen, include Anne-Marie Wilner, who's our digital usher, and Joan McDonald, our Zoom host. We're pleased to welcome back our Minister Emeritus, Reverend Dr. Sheldon Bennett, into our online pulpit this morning. The order of service is online and can be downloaded from our UFPC website. We'll also be pasting the hymn lyrics in the chat as we go. For our online worship services, we invite you to go ahead and leave your video on so that we might see one another in gallery view and make a connection that way. That said, and I'm sure all of you know that Zoom fatigue and looking spiffy on camera is not for everyone, so feel free and please be welcome to turn off your video should you so choose. Note that we are recording this morning's service to be posted on YouTube at a later date. We invite everyone to stay online after our service for a virtual social hour. Now, let's center ourselves for worship by taking a deep breath together, feeling the spirit of life and of love that moves within, between, and beyond us all. We begin our service by lighting our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. If you have a chalice or candle at home, we encourage you to go ahead and kindle the flame for you to enjoy with us all.
As we light the chalice as a sign of our worship together, I offer these words by the poet Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the world, and I am free. Together, we light our chalices and candles for all the wild things and the still waters and that grace of the world that teach us peace and love for one another and for the earth.
Now I will read the words of our covenant. Please read along if you'd like or listen. As a free fellowship of this historic church, we unite to lift our hearts and open our minds to our larger reality, to accept, support, and encourage one another, to seek the wisdom in all religions, to cherish and sustain the love of life, and to strive for justice, compassion, and peace. Let us now lift our voices in song for our opening hymn, Mysterious Presence, Source of All. The lyrics will be pasted in the chat.
Mysterious presence, source of all, the world without, the soul within, thou fount of life, for hear our call, and pour thy living waters in. Thou breathest in the rushing wind, thy spirit stirs in leaf and flower, nor wilt thou from the willing mind withhold light and love and power. Thy hand unseen to accents clear, awoke the psalmist's trembling lyre, and touched the lips of holy seer with flame from thine own altar fire. That touch divine again impart, still give the prophet's burning word, and vocal in each waiting heart, let living songs of praise be heard.
It is a great joy to be with you here this morning on Zoom and to speak from inside this great and beloved church. I can imagine each of you out there in your favorite pew. I can see you out there with your families, with a friend, a loved one, or simply by yourself, each with your hopes, your thoughts, questions, each with your joys, and perhaps with your sorrows. And children, I imagine that I am inviting you to come down front, to sit here around me on the floor, or right there on that first pew. Now, we all hope that actually we will be able to be back here in church someday. No one knows exactly when, but hopefully soon. Now, I know it's been a hard year for everyone. And I too have had days when I still have days when I'm feeling sad, not being able to go places, missing with being friends and family relatives. One day last fall, before we knew if vaccines would be possible, I was feeling especially sad that day. And I was thinking of all the millions of people all over the world who were having a hard time, who had lost jobs, who were afraid of getting sick with the COVID virus, or were shut in and not able to go to school or to be with friends. I was thinking of those who had someone they loved fall sick with the virus, and some of whom may have died. I was feeling a deep grief. So, like I do many days, I went for a walk, put on my mask, and I walked over to Marymount Park, which isn't far from where we live. And I went into the woods on the path that goes along Black's Creek. It was a gray and rainy day with a gentle wind blowing. I was alone there in the woods. I saw no one. Went out to the end of the aluminum pier that is there at the boat launch on Black's Creek. And as I stood there at the end of the pier, over the water, there quietly in the light rain, the wind in my face, I began watching a group of cormorants that were out there on the water, swimming along together in the gray light, and not very far from where I stood. And then suddenly, with a little quick flap of wings, one of the cormorants flew up onto one of those little round white buoys that are bobbing on the water, not far from the end of the pier where I stood. The cormorant turned his face into the wind with its wings open, and it spread them wide as if to dry them in the wind. Or maybe it just felt good, stretching its wings into the wind. I stood watching that cormorant for a long time. And as I watched and watched, actually I was sort of meditating, I began to feel a strange peace come over me. That cormorant and its fellow cormorants there nearby on the water probably were giving no thoughts to my worries or fears. or I'm not sure they even knew I was there watching them. And that cormorant there on the buoy probably did not know how much hatred and bad stuff we humans are doing to each other. And they were probably giving no thought to my worries or fears. It probably did not know that its own natural environment was at risk because of what we humans are doing to the environment or not doing. And all these thoughts were making me sad. But for that moment, I was also experiencing that here was a whole large world surrounding me, a world of cormorants and fish and forests and oceans, a world of wind and rain and sun and stars. Here was a whole universe of life wonderfully going on all around me, and including, yes, a world of microbes and viruses. The longer I stood there watching, the more I felt myself becoming one with that cormorant out there on the buoy, wonderfully spreading its wings to the wind. And in the words of Wendell Berry I read a few moments ago when we lit the chalice, I did feel, if only for those few moments, that I was resting in the grace of the world. And in that freedom, I felt love for that one cormorant. I felt a deep love for all nature and for all living things within that nature of which we are both part. And I thought to myself, you and I, cormorant, you with your wings spread out to the wind, we are in this life of ours together. You and I, we are part of something far greater than either of us may fully know. And it is beautiful. Now, I knew I could not stay there in my meditation. I felt a new urgency that I must go back to where I live. I must go back and care for this earth and care for one another. And that I must do what I can do to end all the hate, or at least the hate that's around me, and do what I can to make the world more beautiful here where I live and with the time that is given me.
Thank you. Now, we'll move on to the sharing of our joys and sorrows. Through the sharing of our joys and sorrows, together we create a sacred space where we're present with one another and the stirrings of our own hearts, knowing that a sorrow shared is a sorrow minified, and a joy shared is a joy magnified. If you wish to briefly acknowledge a sorrow or joy from your heart, I invite you to raise your hand and unmute your mic when our digital usher, Anne-Marie, calls you by name. You may also use the chat or any of the hand-raising functions in Zoom. Let us open our hearts to one another. As we end our sharing, we light a candle representing all the joys and sorrows we hold silently in our hearts. May the light of these candles and the compassion of this community remind us that wherever we are on our journeys, we are each worthy of love and we are each able to love.
Before we join in prayer and meditation, let me just say a word about the reflective music to follow. The music, Sky with Endless Stars, is by modern symphonic composer John Luther Adams. It is one of 4 cantals of the sky he wrote that were inspired by his time in the wilderness of northern Alaska and in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona. The music is performed entirely by violins and cellos, and in a manner to evoke the beauty and the mystery of the natural world. My spoken prayer, which will be first, will end with an invitation to enter into silent meditation along with the music, listening to the sound of sky with endless stars. I will strike the bell once to begin both the music and the meditation, and then the bell once again when the music is over to end the meditation. Let us join now for a time of prayer and meditation. And I invite you to sit up in a comfortable and balanced position. Let yourself become aware. Let yourself become quiet and aware within your body. Become aware of your breathing, gently, naturally. Breathing in, breathing out, in and out. Eternal wisdom, unnameable love, deep mystery of the universe, our innermost life. We come this morning with the deeper questions of our living and our dying. Who are you? Who am I? What is our purpose in this time that is given us? What is our meaning? How do we know you? As creative mind beyond our understanding, as transforming love to save us from ourselves and to renew the world. Where do we meet you? In the song of the stars, in the depths of the forests, in the streets of the city, in the struggle for justice, out on the square in the front of the church, standing with our Asian neighbors in solidarity for community and the end to hate and violence, and our care for one another. In those rare moments of inbreaking recognition, how do we respond to our encounter with your infinity? With acts of kindness? With which deeds of justice? With what care for the earth? O thou who are indwelling spirit, largest thought, revolutionary love, however we may know you, wherever we may meet you, we give thanks for those transcendent moments in which we catch brief glimpse of things that are just beyond us, to receive some deeper insight into the mystery of our becoming. May the experience and the memory of such moments empower us anew for the creative, joyful living of our days. Give us to live by truth and with grace, to care for one another, to create compassionate community, to participate in the healing of a hurting world and making it beautiful. Let this time now be for silent meditation, for personal reflection and prayer. Let this time be to be still and to take counsel of the deeper wisdom and love that is within us. To hold a loved one in remembrance, or simply to let ourselves become still in the presence of the Spirit that moves among us and within us. Give us now to rest in the grace of your presence as we enter this time of meditation, listening for the sound of the sky with endless stars. This first reading is in the voice of a scientist. It's from 7 Brief Lessons on Physics by Carlo Rovelli, who is an Italian theoretical physicist working on quantum gravity. Nature is our home, and in nature we are at home. This strange, multicolored, and astonishing world that we explore, where space is granular, time does not exist, and things are nowhere, is not something that estranges us from our true selves, for this is only what our natural curiosity reveals to us about the place of our dwelling, about the stuff of which we ourselves are made. We are made of the same stardust of which all things are made. And when we are immersed in suffering, or when we are experiencing intense joy, we are nothing other than what we can help but be, a part of our world. It is part of our nature to love and be honest. It is part of our nature to long to know more and to continue to learn. Our knowledge of the world continues to grow. There are frontiers where we are learning, and our desire for knowledge burns. They are in the most minute reaches of the fabric of space and at the origins of the cosmos, in the nature of time, in the phenomenon of black holes, and in the workings of our own thought processes. Here on the edge of what we know, in contact with the ocean of the unknown, shines the mystery and the beauty of the world, and it's breathtaking. The second reading is from The Oversoul by Ralph Waldo Emerson, a transcendentalist philosopher in our own Unitarian Universalist tradition. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intelligence, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. And when it flows through our affections, it is love. Each Sunday, as we gather in worship, we gather to lift our hearts and open our minds to a larger reality. What do we think we mean by a larger reality? And what might happen should we actually encounter it? What might it ask or even demand that we do? When this congregation wrote its present covenant in 1991, that was 30 years ago this year, we found it fairly easy to write the part about values and ethics, the parts about accepting and supporting one another, seeking the wisdom in all religions, cherishing the web of life, striving for justice, compassion, and peace. These are very important affirmations. But we knew something more was missing. We sensed that the covenant would not be complete. It would not fully speak to the core of our religious purpose as a congregation if we did not in some way affirm transcendence, affirm a sense for the infinite. It would be incomplete if it did not name that which is the source and sustaining power of our commitment together to work for justice, for compassion and peace. Now, every religion has at its core, every religion affirms a creating and sustaining power that at once embraces the cosmos and is at the same time the very heart of life, a mysterious presence, the source of all that is and that is becoming. And every religion gives this transcendence, this sense of the infinite, a name. Great Spirit, Brahman, God, Allah, Spirit of Life, the Oversoul. The names are many. And there are those in every religion who say that this transcendence is beyond any naming, because once you name it, it's no longer transcendent. So for Christians, some Christians speak of the God that is beyond God. Buddhists use the word shunyata, that ultimate reality, undifferentiated nothingness from which all apparent entities and distinctions and dualities arise. Now that would be a whole nother sermon. Now, with our commitment to honoring the diversity of personal beliefs and freedom of thought within our Unitarian Universalist congregations, what were we, United First Parish Church, to call this transcendent something? A larger reality is what we decided. This seemed to best express both our affirmation of a sense of the transcendent and that which is beyond any final naming. Now, this business of opening our minds and lifting our hearts to a larger reality could be a pretty scary thing. I mean, what might happen should we actually encounter it? We are dealing here with something powerful. We are dealing with the infinite, with a capital I, that which we sense is beyond all ordinary measure or ordinary understanding, but somehow we sense to be the sustaining power of all the universe. And we are also, in our affirming a larger reality, we are in opening our hearts and minds, we are risking an encounter with eternity, that which is beyond ordinary time, beyond natural cause and effect. Such encounters do change lives, even history itself. I expect that each of us have those moments, those brief, when we catch brief glimpses, when we experience a profound intuition as if from beyond our ordinary world, and intuition we sense as immensely significant. The realization of a new truth that could radically change our understanding of our life and world. The experience of a loving power that pushes our egos off center and brings us into new relationship with one another and our world. An inner voice that commands us to serve a cause greater than ourselves and that overcomes all fear. But every now and then throughout history, someone somewhere has an encounter of the infinite kind that is of biblical proportion, literally. Prophets receive visions of a new heaven and a new earth. The Buddha has a great awakening beneath a bo tree, and 10,000 galaxies are said to have trembled in awe, and every tree to have burst forth with lotus blossoms. Moses at the burning bush encounters a cosmic power that commands him, a fugitive, a shepherd, a man who had trouble speaking, to go back to Egypt, to confront the Pharaoh who was after him for murder, to let his people go. Who should I say send me? Moses asks. Tell them, I am becoming what I am becoming sends you. A name beyond naming, and yet a dynamic power that sustains the universe and history. World history changes through such encounters of this kind. Whole new religions and mythologies arise from such sort of solitary events. While seemingly rare, such encounters within transcendence may happen more often than we think. In the early days of the Montgomery bus boycott, Martin Luther King Jr., then a young new preacher in town, was struggling within himself with the role that he was being asked to take by the community to be a leader, and the very real danger he knew that it put him in, as well as his family. One night, after yet another threatening phone call came to his home, and unable to sleep, King went down to the kitchen, put on a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and buried his head in his hands. Racked with doubt and afraid, finally he said aloud, as if to himself, I've come to the point where I can't face it alone. And then, after saying these words, as King recounted, he had this intense inner experience of an inner voice, as he put it, telling him to do what he knew to be right. And immediately he felt his fears begin to fade away and a new courage come to him, a new courage that would never leave him. This was an encounter of the infinite kind. And in that moment, history changed. Now, for most of us, our psychic defenses they're pretty strong. So our encounters of the infinite kind may not be quite so dramatic. But even so, we do, each of us, have moments when we receive insights that may motivate an important life decision. We may experience a deep love that moves us to commit ourselves anew to a just or worthy cause. In a time of fear or doubt, we may experience a profound trust welling up within us to sustain us through the hard place and give us courage. A trust that no matter how things turn out, all will be well. Such encounters are real. They happen, they can shake our foundations, and they often come at a personal cost. But they also open to a new freedom and a new life. They change lives. They change history. But what to make of them? Are they for real? Are they only an illusion? An artifact of a disturbed mind? Some philosophers, psychologists, and scientists think the latter. It's just an illusion. Wishful thinking. Others offer a somewhat more positive. They offer a naturalistic understanding of such encounters. They're said to result from just simply the natural workings of our biological brains, which have evolved through natural processes over eons of evolutionary development, an entirely human phenomenon. We interpret such encounters of the infinite kind in terms of mythologies and metaphysical ideas that we construct and give them religious meanings, which in themselves may have no reality beyond our imagining. And yet, there's a great beauty and power in our poetic creativity, our poetic imagination. And biologist and author Ursula Goodenough, who thinks a lot about religion and delights in the wonder that she experiences within from her experience of the natural world. She writes in her book, The Sacred Depths of Nature. She writes that nature has no creator, no superordinate meaning, no purpose other than life's continuance. Yet she writes that the natural world does fill her with the sense of awe and reverence. Recall the words of Carlo Rovelli I read earlier. Here on the edge of what we know, in contact with the ocean of the unknown, shines the mystery and the beauty of the world, and it's breathtaking. These are examples of what is called religious naturalism, that our religious thoughts and our religious faith and beliefs are to be understood as natural phenomenon, the natural workings of the human brain through which we give our experiences of reverence and awe, religious meaning. Now, such naturalistic understandings of religious experience and the feelings of mystery and awe and beauty and reverence as natural phenomenon, this makes a certain sense as far as they go. But many people, and no doubt some of you, sense that there is more, there's something maybe more going on in the universe than we can ever know, something truly astonishing that is altogether beyond the reach of scientific discovery and reason alone. And let yourself ponder for even just a short while as to why there is anything at all and not nothing. What is holding up and sustaining the universe? The whole thing, the equations of the physicist, and each atom, each organism, each turtle, and every bird brought into being moment to moment. The fact that you and I are here at all to ask such questions, to ponder such mysteries, is an astonishing thing to consider. And what about consciousness? Is it only the chemical activity of our neurological brains that, as sort of an accident of biological evolution? What is consciousness? Is it just a biological phenomenon, sort of an extra bonus from evolution? Or is the universe itself, at its very core, intelligent and imbued with purpose and meaning? Emerson thinks so. Hear his words again. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. When it breaks through our intelligence, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. It seems Emerson is talking about close encounters of the infinite kind. In worship, we dare to affirm and open ourselves to a reality that we sense is quite beyond ourselves and beyond even the stars, and yet is alive and active at the core of our being. But is our encounter with this larger reality only a feeling? The Jewish theologian and civil rights activist Abraham Heschel, who marched with Martin Luther King and John Lewis from Selma to Montgomery, wrote, quote, "The beginning of faith is not a feeling for the mystery of living or a sense of awe or wonder and amazement. The root of religion is the question, what to do with the feeling for the mystery of living, what to do with the awe and wonder and amazement. Religion calls religion begins with a consciousness that something is asked of us." End of quote. Our very real encounters with a larger reality, our direct experience with the mystery of the universe, call us to show up, to speak out, to act, and to do what is right and just, what is loving and true. In those rare but powerful moments when we experience direct encounter, new truth, new love, and new justice break through to change our lives and our world for real. This is the heart of religion, and it's why we come to church. So may it be. Now let us lift our voices in song.
such a jolly tune. I love that. We drink from wells we did not dig. We use software we did not code, and we sit in the shade of trees we did not plant. As the recipients of all we have received from those who came before us, we are called to share our abundance with those who are with us now and those who will follow us. This congregation aspires to do life-affirming and life-transforming work, both within our church community and the larger web of life which we are a part. Please take this moment to visit our website and consider clicking on the donate button located on the homepage of our website, ufpc.org. May our gifts to support the good works of United First Parish Church be joyfully given and gratefully received.
Now may the reverence that gives life its sacredness, may the love that gives life its beauty, and may the divine presence that shines through the universe and enter our own hearts to empower our living for the sake of love and peace. Amen.
Just a few announcements. You can find the detailed announcements and download them at ufpc.org. Today, I'm told that our writing group will meet on the same link that we're currently on. To join our email list, email David at office@ufpc.org, and look to the web for our biweekly children's chapel services. There's also a standout for Quincy Black Lives, Thursdays, 3:30 to 5:30.